Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This is where we take those really dense topics, the complex stuff, and try to make it make sense.
Try to boil it down.
Exactly. We want you to get the knowledge without getting buried in it. And today, we've got a fascinating one. We're looking at that intersection of psychology and religion.
Yeah, a big one.
Specifically through Erich Fromm's eyes. That sort of analytical, humanistic perspective he brings.
It's such a crucial area, isn't it, where our deep psychological needs meet these structures of belief and meaning. And Fromm, yeah, he's absolutely central to that conversation. Really pushed things beyond classic Freud.
Right.
We're tackling some pretty profound questions from his work today. I mean, what are those needs religion fills? And maybe more importantly, how do we tell the difference between a religion that helps us grow versus one that's, harmful?
That's exactly the mission for today. We're diving into the source material for Erich Fromm's Psychoanalysis and Religion, or Psychoanalyse wie den. We're really focusing on the first part of his argument.
The foundations.
Yeah, trying to pull out those key ideas he sets up right at the start. Specifically, we're digging into the material covered up to page 101 of the text we're working from. That's where he really lays out his basic categories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for everyone listening, there's something important context-wise here. Just so you know, this deep dive, it's actually part one of a two-part summary.
That's right.
This summary was prepared by Bilal El-Faki. So if you're looking for the full picture, the complete summaries, and there are lots of other audio discussions too, you can find all of that over on the Psychology of Religion page.
Definitely worth checking out for the whole context.
For sure. But our focus today is super sharp. Just those initial definitions, that framework from builds in those opening pages.
Precisely. We're looking at the specific excerpts that lay out Fromm's core terms, his critique of Freud's view on religion, which is huge, and how he introduces that key distinction he makes.
The authoritarian versus humanitarian one?
It's exactly that. Between authoritarian and humanitarian religious systems. This early stuff, up to page 101, it's just vital because it sets up everything else he talks about later, his whole social critique.
Okay, right then. Let's get into it. Let's unpack this. Because before Fromm even talks about specific doctrines or rituals, he kind of pulls back, doesn't he? He makes us look inside.
He does.
Asks, what's the fundamental human thing driving us towards any kind of belief system in the first place?
Yeah, and what's really striking is how he argues this need for a system. It isn't neurotic. It's not a sickness. It's just baked into being human. Unlike animals, we've got this consciousness, this reason, imagination, and that means we know we're isolated, we know we're temporary, we see the randomness. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And that produces what Fromm calls a fundamental existential anxiety. It's just part of the package of being human.
Okay, so if that anxiety is just there built in, then religion, or maybe any big meaning system, comes along to
soothe it.
Well,
Basically, yeah. It provides two things, he says, a frame of orientation and an object of devotion.
Okay, frame of orientation, like a map.
Exactly like a map. It's the cognitive part, the ideas, the concepts that let us make sense of the world, figure out our place in it, give it some structure, some meaning. It turns that feeling of chaos into something understandable, a cosmos. Lets us think and act with purpose.
Right, you need some kind of map, even if it's not perfect. Otherwise, the world just feels overwhelming, terrifying.
Everyone needs one. Every culture, every person. But like you said, he doesn't stop there with just the thinking part. He adds the object of devotion.
Why isn't having the map the philosophy enough? Why do we need something to be devoted to?
Well, because we're not just brains in vats, right? We're feeling beings, we have desires, we need connection. The object of devotion addresses that need to belong, to transcend our little selves, to unite with something bigger. And that object, it could be a traditional god, sure. But it could also be nature or an ideal like truth or justice or even something totally secular.
Like nationalism?
Or nationalism, or maybe even like intense dedication to a political cause or consumerism.
Yeah.
For Fromm, the drive is the key thing. It's inescapable. The real question is just what we end up devoting ourselves to.
That just... It completely shifts the usual debate, doesn't it? Away from, does God exist, and towards what psychological job is this belief doing?
Spot on. It moves from metaphysics to, mental and emotional function, maybe even mental health.
Yeah.
And this is really where Fromm starts carving out his own space, distinct from Freud. You see it clearly in these early pages, the material up to 101. He's carefully taking Freud's ideas, synthesizing them, but then really challenging that classic psychoanalytic take on religion.
Okay, let's dig into that Freud critique, because that feels central to getting from Rome. Freud basically saw religion as what? A big illusion, a kind of collective
Pretty
neurosis.
much, yeah, a universal neurosis. He saw it as rooted in, like, our infantile
The whole
helplessness.
father figure thing.
Exactly. The idea was that as kids, we need this all-powerful father figure for protection. Then, as adults, facing the scary parts of life, nature, death, fate, our minds kind of regress. We project that childhood need onto the cosmos and invent this big, protective father god to make us feel safe.
So for Freud, it's something we need to grow out of, get rid of it to face reality, like mature adults using
That
science.
was his prescription, yes. Abolish religion for humanity to mature.
So Fromm looks at that. What does he keep and where does he say, hold on a minute?
Well, he doesn't totally throw Freud out.
Mm.
He accepts that some forms of religion really do look like that. They do seem to involve regression, dependency, illusion. This is what he'll later call authoritarian religion. So he acknowledges, yes, religion can be about fear and helplessness and just submitting to power. He reframes Freud rather than dismissing him outright.
And this feels like the big but. He says that's not the only way religion works. It's not the whole story of the spiritual impulse.
Precisely. That's from Stroman's crucial move. He argues Freud made a mistake. He confused the specific ways religion often showed up in, say, Western culture at that time, which often were pathological, with the fundamental human need for meaning itself.
Ah, okay. So the need is real, even if the expression can be unhealthy.
Right. And Fromm points out, look, if this need for a frame for connection is innate, as he argues it is, then just getting rid of one system doesn't solve the problem. People will just latch on to something else. You get rid of God as the object of devotion, fine. People might just find another object, maybe a dictator, maybe money, maybe just chasing status relentlessly. The need finds an outlet.
So where Freud basically saw sickness, Fromm saw its potential, or at least a fundamental need that could go either way, healthy or unhealthy.
Exactly. He shifts the focus. It's less about whether the specific beliefs are true or false in some objective sense, and more about the quality of the belief system. What kind of psychological structure does it create in the person?
Right. And that leads directly into his big distinction, the core idea we need to grasp from this first section.
It really is the linchpin of the whole book. And yeah, synthesizing this material up to page 101, it's all about setting up this critical framework, the split between authoritarian and humanitarian religion.
Okay, let's spend some real time on these. They sound absolutely key. How does he define authoritarian religion? What does that look like?
Right. Authoritarian religion, this is built on the idea that the ultimate power god, or whatever it is, exists outside of us. It's external, it's all-powerful, and it makes demands.
Okay.
The relationship is fundamentally one of submission, fear, awe, obedience. The core psychological move is surrendering your own will, your own reason, to this overwhelming external authority.
So all the power, all the value is out there, not in here, not in the individual.
Precisely. And the psychological effects of that surrender. Fromm sees them as often quite damaging. Well, in this kind of system, the highest virtue is just obedience, doing what you're told. Sin isn't about harming someone necessarily. It's about disobedience.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if the command seems ethical or not. If the authority says do it, it's good. If it forbids it, it's evil.
Wow.
This creates this deep psychological dependency. You end up sacrificing your own judgment, your critical thinking, your self-reliance, just to stay in line with the authority.
It sounds like you're trading away your own growth, your own potential, just to feel safe or accepted by this external power, like staying a perpetual child.
That's a great way to put it. You're always under the cosmic parent, so to speak. You don't feel loved because you're inherently good or virtuous. You feel loved only if you obey, which just keeps reinforcing feelings of being unworthy, dependent. And because the power is external, things like prayer or ritual, they often become about trying to get rewards or avoid punishment, rather than stemming from genuine love or care for others. It's about appeasing the judge, not developing your own moral core.
And Fromm saw this pattern not just in churches or temples, right? He applied it more broadly.
Oh, absolutely. You see the same dynamic in political cults, extreme forms of nationalism. Anywhere an external entity, the state, the leader, the party, demands absolute unquestioning loyalty. His framework is powerful because it identifies a psychological structure,
Mm.
regardless of the specific content.
So it's about the mechanism of relating to power.
Exactly. It's a character structure. Whether the authority figure is a priest, a dictator, or even something abstract like the market demanding constant subservient work, the psychological result is similar. The individual feels powerless, projects their own strength onto the authority, and then ends up worshiping the very power they helped create by giving theirs away. It's alienation.
Okay, that's a really clear picture of the authoritarian side. Now let's flip to the other pole he identifies, humanitarian religion. If authoritarianism is about submission and fear, what's the bedrock of the humanitarian approach?
Humanitarian religion starts from the opposite place. It's rooted in human capacity, human strength, not weakness. The focus is all on developing our potential, our reason, our ability to love.
Okay.
In this view, God, or the ultimate spiritual ideal, isn't some external tyrant demanding obedience. It's more like a symbol of our own highest possibilities. It represents the virtues we're striving to realize within ourselves, things like love, truth, justice.
So the focus shifts completely inward. Instead of worshiping an external power, the spiritual practice becomes about self-realization, becoming more fully human.
Precisely. The goal is maximizing our own inner strength, not maximizing submission. Virtue isn't obedience anymore. It's about achieving genuine integrity, developing the capacity to love authentically.
And sin. What does sin look like in this framework?
Sin, in the humanitarian view, is essentially failing to live up to your potential. It's failing to become fully human, maybe retreating into dependency, irrationality, or failing to love. It's an internal failure, not a cosmic crime against an external ruler.
That's a radically different idea of morality. Authoritarian. Follow the external rules. Humanitarian. Cultivate internal growth and life-affirming qualities.
Yes, and it ties right back to that frame of orientation idea. In a humanitarian system, you build your map using reason, empathy, experience. The emphasis is on understanding the world and yourself through critical thinking and genuine connection, not just accepting dogma handed down.
Does Fromm give examples, especially in this early part of the book, to show what he means? He often seemed interested in how religions start one way and maybe shift over time.
He does. He frequently points to early Buddhism, for instance, or the early phases of the prophetic tradition in Judaism as examples that started with a strong humanitarian impulse.
How so with early Buddhism?
Well, in early Buddhism, the focus is squarely on the individual's capacity to achieve enlightenment through their own efforts. Meditation, ethical living, understanding. There's no external God figure judging you or demanding worship for salvation. It's about self-mastery.
Right. The Buddha shows the path, but you have to walk it yourself. It's an inward journey.
Exactly. And similarly, he saw the early Jewish prophets as emphasizing human ethical responsibility, justice, love, truth between people, as the real core of spiritual life. They weren't focused just on temple rituals or blind obedience. They were often challenging the powerful, demanding ethical action from people.
But Fromm also saw how these humanitarian starts could turn authoritarian over time. How does that happen?
Yeah, that's a key observation for him. It often happens through institutionalization. And also, frankly, because embracing insecurity and taking full responsibility is hard work. People often prefer the comfort of rules. As spiritual movements become organized religions, they develop hierarchies, dogmas, power structures. These are needed to maintain the institution. But often, that original liberating message, the difficult path of self-discovery, gets sidelined. It gets replaced by an easier path. Follow the rules, perform the rituals, submit to the authorities.
So the symbol that once represented inner potential gets turned back into an external demanding power figure.
That's often the pattern. The concept that started as a guide for growth becomes a kind of cage of conformity. And it's such a powerful critique because it means the danger isn't necessarily the specific belief, but the psychological way you relate to it.
Yeah.
And that's why Fromm isn't trying to just ditch religion. He's trying to give us tools to tell the difference. Which forms help us grow? Which ones stunt our growth? And he applies the same lens outside traditional religion, too, like we touched on, to politics, economics.
Okay, let's try that. Let's take a secular example he might use. Say, the way some people seem devoted to, like, capitalism or constant consumerism. How would Fromm analyze that using this authoritarian humanitarian distinction?
He'd likely classify extreme, uncritical devotion to the market as pretty clearly authoritarian.
Why?
Because the supreme power becomes this abstract, relentless force with the market, economic growth, profit, Individuals often feel compelled to submit their time, their needs, their judgment to the belief that more production, more consumption is the ultimate good.
And virtue becomes.
Virtue becomes efficiency, productivity, conforming to what the economic system demands. And sin. Sin is falling behind, being unproductive, being poor, failing to keep up with the constant churn.
It's an external judge again.
Right. An external authority, the economy, the market, judges your worth based on output, on metrics that often ignore your humanity. People can feel constantly inadequate unless they're achieving or acquiring. They pour their life energy into work or buying things, alienating it, and then end up sort of worshiping the very system that demands that sacrifice. It functions like an authoritarian religion, even if it's totally secular.
That really shows the power of analysis. He's saying psychoanalysis isn't just for understanding personal neuroses. It's a tool to decode the hidden religious structures operating in any society, whether they call themselves religious or not.
Exactly.
It lets you ask that core question, is this system, this belief I hold, helping me become more whole, more rational, more loving? Or is it demanding that I shrink, submit, and maybe even harm others in its name?
And that's why getting these core definitions down, the stuff covered up to page 101, frame of orientation, object of devotion, authoritarian, humanitarian, is so absolutely essential. Without this toolkit, the rest of his analysis, his social critique later on, doesn't really land. He's giving the reader, giving you the yardstick to evaluate any system that claims to offer meaning.
And it feels less pessimistic than Freud. Freud basically says it's all illusion. Freud says, no, the need for meaning is real and healthy. The crucial thing is the form it takes.
Yeah, it shifts from dismissal to diagnosis. It's a call for possibility, not just pessimism.
So if we had to really boil down the main takeaway from just this first section, the setup phase of the book, what would it be?
I'd say it's this. Psychoanalysis needs to get more sophisticated about religion. Stop just dismissing it all as neurosis. Instead, embrace the task of, differential diagnosis.
Telling the difference.
Yeah. We need to differentiate. Which systems of belief foster love and connection, and which ones breed fear and hatred? Which ones encourage independence and reason, and which ones demand submission and irrationality? That's the crucial psychoanalytic task when looking at religion or any meaning system.
Which means the ultimate test of any spiritual system, or even a political or economic one, isn't its history or its fancy theological arguments, but what it does to the person's character. Does it help them become more integrated, loving, reasonable? Or does it make them more fearful, dependent, maybe even willing to hurt others for the sake of the external authority?
That's the heart of the humanitarian path he champions. And he's clear, it takes courage.
How so?
The courage to, stand on your own feet psychologically, to use your own reason, even when it's uncomfortable. To accept that being ethical, being loving, has to be its own reward, not something you do just to get a cosmic payout or avoid punishment. It's about inner mastery, not sucking up to external power.
Wow. Okay, so this detailed look at Fromm's starting point really gives us the tools, the vocabulary frame of orientation, object of devotion, authoritarian, humanitarian, to understand where he goes next.
Absolutely. And again, remember, we've only covered the ground for part 1 of Bilal al-Faqi's summary here. These definitions are the bedrock. The parts that follow will surely build on this, showing how these structures play out in real life, in history, in society, and how they can lead to wider problems.
Right. We've set the stage, we've unpacked that crucial humanitarian-authoritarian split, and we've seen why Fromm had to move beyond that simple Freudian dismissal. It really prepares anyone who wants to go deeper.
And that's where we really do encourage you, if this has sparked your interest, to check out the full summary over on the Psychology of Religion page. That's where you'll find the next steps, the applications, the deeper dive into Fromm's arguments.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on as we wrap up this first part. Thinking about Fromm's framework. Which systems in our world today, maybe spiritual, maybe political, maybe even commercial or technological ones, strike you as leaning authoritarian?
Yeah.
Based on that core test, do they demand submission and operate on fear, or do they genuinely encourage your reason, your growth, your self-reliance?
It's a really practical challenge he leaves us with. Look around at the things demanding your energy, your belief, your devotion. Which ones actually want you to think for yourself, and which ones maybe subtly punish you for questioning?
That's the Frommian litmus test right there.
It is.
A fascinating place to pause. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Erich Fromm's foundational ideas on psychoanalysis and religion. We hope breaking down these opening arguments has given you some clear takeaways.
Yeah, hopefully it provides some useful tools. Go out and use them. Keep questioning those authorities. The rest of the material is out there if you want to explore more.
And hey, if you've got your own stack of sources, could be articles, reports, dense books, whatever, that you think needs the deep dive treatment, send it our way. We're always looking for the next challenge. Until then, keep digging, keep learning.
Take care.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.